Welcome back to another episode of Sage and the Rage.
I'm Sage.
And I'm Rage.
And today we are talking about the racials and, the other details about the Dark Iron Dwarves and the Mag'har Orcs, the newest allied races that they've finally fleshed out.
So let's start with the Dark Iron Dwarves. Let's go with the little piece of lore tidbit here. Known for their fiery tempers and fierce determination, Dark Iron Dwarves have a turbulent history with other clans. A failed coup in Ironforge ignited the War of the Three Hammers, and many of the Dark Iron once fought in the service of Ragnaros, the Fire Lord. Though one faction is pledged to Queen Regent Moira Thorician, others refuse to stand alongside her kin. The Alliance seeks a united Dark Iron clan to harness the power of Azeroth and aid their struggle against the Horde. And so there's our little bit of lore background, and then we'll get into classes and racials. So available classes for the Dark Irons are Hunters, Mages, Monks, Paladins, Priests, Rogues, Shamans, Warlock, and Warriors.
So they got a pretty good spread of what they can be,
Yeah, plenty of casters, plenty of melee. But let's go into Wowhead's racials, because these are more fleshed out and defined over here on Wowhead. And once we're done with the racials, we'll go back and talk about class combinations and what seems to be a good lean for these things.
Yeah.
So, Dungeon Delver. Well indoors moves 4% faster. That's not a lot, but movement speed does matter.
Oh yeah, and it's useful. And think about this. Most dungeons are indoors. Most raids are indoors. PvP, it's probably not going to help you too much in, because, some niche applicability, but overall, Dungeon Delver is for dungeons.
Yeah, and really good for dungeons. Where it could lose some, of its momentum and kind of be a wasted racial slot is if you have a monk in your group. A Windwalker specifically, but I think all monks get this, but I know Windwalker does. And that is, when you have a Windwalker monk in group, you get a flat movement speed buff because of the new class buffs that they've added to having different things in group. So this, I'm doubting, will stack with it. They usually don't have things like this stack. So it would render it useless if you have the right monk in your group. But still good for dungeons if you don't have a monk. Still good for soloing. Not a bad racial at all. Fireblood. Remove all poison, disease, curse, magic, and bleed effects, and increase your primary stat by 100 for each effect removed. Last 8 seconds, 2-minute cooldown.
You know how you spell that? OP-AF.
That's ridiculous. So, to be able to remove poison, disease, curse, magic, and bleed effects, all of them, on a 2-minute cooldown, that's pretty reliable. When you're fighting a raid boss, there's, stuff that comes out that you want to be able to deal with, maybe even debuffs, where 2 minutes would be plenty of time to be able to deal with it. Let alone now, you get a primary stat increase for each one removed. So in PvP, this has huge applications. Let yourself get just racked up with debuffs, cleanse it, and then, go ham for a while in your primary stat. Or, like we already said, being able to remove all of the above. Poison, disease, curse, magic, and bleed. That's bonkers.
Yeah, it's great against rogues, locks, priests, you name it.
There's not a single situation where this is bad. That's great. It's OP, but it's great.
And here's the other thing. It's good for every class.
Yep. Doesn't matter what it is because it's your primary stat. Which, agility, intellect, whatever. Forged in Flames. Reduce damage taken from physical attacks by 1%. This is so much better than what the rest of the racials have. Like, if you're a Draenei, you get, shadow damage reduced by 1%. If you're a Night Elf, nature damage reduced by 1%. But physical. Practically everything tries to physically hit you. Unless it's a caster. And even casters, sometimes when they're unable to cast, physically hit you.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Let's look at this from a tank perspective. It doesn't make you worse against casters. You're still just as effective as any other tank against magic damage. You're just better than them against physical damage.
It's a great racial. It just all around is a great racial. Mole Machine. While outdoors, summon a mole machine that tunnels through the earth 30-minute cooldown. I'm assuming this is like an extra Hearthstone, kind of like some ancestral guidance for shamans or something like that. Really like it. Looks great. Extra Hearthstone. I would never complain.
Yeah,
Having extra Hearthstones is amazing utility when questing, raiding, or doing dungeons with people.
It's just plainly a good racial. You know, I don't think it's overpowered, just good.
Yep. And then mass production. Items crafted by blacksmithing are created twice as quickly. Meh, everybody gets a professional one. I don't know how many times you're going to be doing mass production, but it is fitting of its name because that's the only time it's good is when you're doing mass production.
It's not bad.
It makes sense lore-wise, though. And that's the thing. All these things make sense lore-wise. They're fine. Like, they fit the lore of people who spend time underneath the earth, mining, working, forging, you know, all these things. It's great. It's great. So let's go back to the class combinations on that. Hunter, Mage, Monk, Paladin, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, Warrior.
Now, I don't think there's a single class in there that they're going to be bad at.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion, any of the tank classes,
Yep.
they're just going to be fantastic.
Yep. You have a Monk, a Paladin, and a Warrior. All that can tank, that can now remove their own debuffs every 2 minutes and benefit from it, whatever the primary stat will be. Unfortunately for tanks, usually primary stat goes to stamina and not strength or agility, which is kind of annoying, but still, extra stam means extra hits.
But on the other hand, even without buffing the primary stat, just being able to remove debuffs is great.
Yeah, and the ability to remove any debuff.
Yeah.
You know?
And you're a tank, so guess what? You're going to get debuffs.
Take 1% reduced physical damage. It's all good. Move faster. Tanks often sometimes aren't the fastest. Now, warriors are, monks are pretty quick too. But paladins without their horse are not the fastest thing on the earth, so increased speed indoors, not a bad thing. So, that's a take on them. Let's go on to the Maghar orcs. For untold generations, the orc clans of Draenor battled one another in endless war, but when Gul'dan offered them the blood of the demonic masters, the disparate tribes of the Maghar, the orcish word for uncorrupted, refused the dark bargain and band together to drive out the Burning Legion. United under the leadership of Gramash Hellscream, the Maghar pledged that one day to repay Azeroth's heroes for aiding their cause. As war against the Alliance intensifies, the Horde must call upon the might of the Maghar to seize victory. I have a problem with the lore spin with this right off the bat. The Maghar pledged to one day repay Azeroth's heroes, not the Horde.
Yeah.
The Alliance helped you here too.
And it kind of glosses over a few things, you know. Maybe a little orc who kind of took Orgrimmar over, traveled through time a bit, and, you know.
Yeah, and you're good with the Horde. Yep. Okay, alright. So lore-wise, this is askew as far as I'm concerned. But I get it, they are orcs, so they would side with orcs, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of the same as the Lightforged Draenei siding with the Alliance, you know.
Exactly, that's not good either.
No,
but
I'm not justifying it, but it's the same boat.
It is, and that, like I said, that's not good either. The Lightforged Draenei are just like, we'll go with the Alliance. The Horde had nothing to do with, taking down Argus. Whatever. So then we have available classes. Hunter, Mage, Monk, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warrior. So let's look at the racials.
All right.
Racials, Ancestral Call. Invoke the spirits of your ancestors, granting you their power, increasing a random secondary stat by 102 for 12 seconds. That sucks! Compared to remove all poison, curse, damage, and bleed effects increased by your primary stat for each one removed. That's your primary. This is a random secondary. I hope this iteration of this racial gets changed. It should be whatever is your highest it chooses. Because otherwise this is just...
what
I got a bad one.
What happens if, you roll the dice and secondary buffs is one you don't need?
What happens if you roll the dice and don't get the buff you want, rogues?
Yeah.
I've
been there.
Has Blizzard not learned their lesson on this? The fact that it's random is bad. If it was more static, this would be a great racial. Open Skies increases mountain speed by 10%. Whoop-de-doo.
This one's kind of confusing because on Blizzard's own site, it specifies flying speed.
Mm-hmm.
If it's specific to flying speed, that's crap. Because we all know you're not going to be able to fly in the new zones for a good long while, so have fun with that racial that's not going to mean anything.
Yeah, and on Blizzard's website it says flying. And if you're a Paladin or a Death Knight and you have other movement speeds, they don't stack. So on a Pale Horse... would not stack with Open
Well,
Skies. Now, they can't be Death Knights, of course, but I'm giving the example that these things don't stack.
No.
So, whoop-de-doo. Yeah, that one's... Oh, I feel bad for the orcs.
If it's just in general mounted speed, it's not awful, but it could be better. But if it's specific to flying, you're not going to use this unless you're off in, like, Northrend, you know, just doing stuff.
Farming pets. Then we get to the next one, and this just goes back. Savage Blood reduces the duration of poison, diseases, and curses by 10%. So, this one, for the dwarves, it removes everything and gives you primary stat for each one removed. It takes 2 race rolls to not even equal that for the orcs. Reduce the duration of poison, disease, and curses. Whoop-de-doo.
And here's the thing. That's not bleeds. That's not magic.
Exactly! So it's even worse. Even if you put these two together, it still doesn't equal this.
Now this last one gets me. Sympathetic Vigor. Increase pet health by 10%. Okay, if you're a hunter, that's great. If you're a warlock, that's great. Oh, wait. They can't be warlocks.
Yeah, and pets don't really die that often anymore anyway. So, yeah, you can be a hunter, great. More pet health. That's not a bad thing. You know, HP is HP. It's never a bad thing to have more longevity. Not downplaying 10%. But they can only be hunters, mages, monks, priests, rogues, shamans, warriors. So, if you can't be a warlock, and you can only be a hunter, why have a pet racial? I mean, mages if you're frost?
I guess, but...
Shaman for your fire elemental? Yeah.
It's just not good, and why can't they be warlocks? Warlocks is an orc class. I get it, they're not corrupted, but I'm assuming Gul'dan was a warlock before he was corrupted.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I get it from a lore perspective because they turn down the demonic masters. They stand against the burning legion, so why would they mess with the fel? I get it from that standpoint. But still, it's a lackluster racial. I don't think they're done yet either because there's only 4 racials for the orc, and there's 5 for the Dark Irons. I'm hoping whatever they do here that these aren't done for the orcs because I'm not a Horde player, but I feel bad for the Horde because if you pick Maghar Orc, you're doing it simply for the aesthetics.
Yeah, and people have been asking for the Maghar Orcs for a very long time.
Yep.
And just to get this, I'm sorry, Blizzard kind of gypped you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. At least in its current iteration. Hopefully it changes. But right now, Ancestral Call and Savage Blood, you might as well put together to just get Fire Blood. So in the end, you really only have 3 racials compared to the Dark Iron's 5. And you're still missing 1, which looks like it's supposed to be a crafting one. Or some type of profession or bank or, you know, a quality of life thing. So, it doesn't look good for the Maghar Orcs.
So yeah, as we did with the Dark Irons, classes we think are good for the Maghar. Really, Hunters probably got it the best, but none of them are particularly stellar.
And Hunter, simply because your pet that doesn't die that often anyway, will now have 10% more health.
I mean, I guess if you're going out questing, you're having your pet tank a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a little bit better, but...
Yeah. I mean, longevity is longevity. I already said that. But these are just lackluster. There's nothing that screams, put this class with this race.
Well, and the problem is, they put it up against the Dark Irons, which are just... Look at them.
OP.
Yeah, I'm hoping orcs get buffed, and I kind of suspect Dark Irons might get a little bit of a nerf.
You'd hope. You'd hope. Let us know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Which one of these are you looking to play? Do you not even care about racials? You're like, I don't care. I just want the aesthetics of being able to play it. Because I know Maghar Orcs are something that Horde players have wanted for a while. If you are an Alliance player, are you excited about the Dark Irons? Are you going to roll one? Are you going to tank on one? They look like a very sturdy, hardy class, race, combo, whatever. Hit the bell. Hit the subscribe. Hit that like button. Share with a friend, because sharing is caring.
Peace.